Good evening. Pope Francis has died a day after making an appearance on Easter Sunday. The Vatican announced the pontiff died this morning. Around the world, members of the Catholic Church are entering a mourning period before the process begins to select a new pope. Here in Springfield, Bishop Paprocki shares his thoughts.
I would sum up the life of Pope Francis with three words, basically, words of his own choosing that I think were very important to him. Those words are love, mercy, and hope.
The death of Pope Francis is being mourned at basilicas and cathedrals worldwide. Here in the U.S., you can see New York police officers installing bunting at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown Manhattan. Now, this black fabric being draped is a traditional way to indicate a period of mourning, showing respect and honor. Pope Francis was 88 years old. The Vatican releasing his death certificate, saying he died from a cerebral stroke, which led to his heart stopping. According to his will, Francis requested burial in the Basilica of St. Mary Major. Our Eliza Petrie has more on how he's being remembered.
A solemn service this evening in St. Peter's Square for Pope Francis, who died this morning in Rome. The faithful gathering rosaries in hand, offering prayers for the pontiff. Bells ringing out this morning at the Vatican to mark his passing. The giant bronze doors at the Apostolic Palace half closed as the Vatican observes the sede vacante period. The papal throne is empty. Mourners gathering to honor the leader of more than 1 billion Catholics around the world, including in his birthplace of Argentina. His death comes just a day after Easter, when he celebrated with thousands of faithful.
Buona Pasqua.
Blessing the crowd from the balcony and greeting them in his Pope-mobile.
Beautiful timing on God's part. And my sense was that he celebrated Easter yesterday with the faithful, and he's celebrating with Jesus Christ today in heaven.
In his final message Sunday, the Pope calling for peace and unity around the globe, urging an end to the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. On Sunday, he also met with Vice President J.D. Vance, who says he was happy to see him. The pontiff was recently hospitalized for weeks as he battled double pneumonia. Pope Francis spent his life serving the church, making history as the first pope from Latin America and the first Jesuit. He's also credited with bringing a new wave of optimism into the Catholic religion.
Also, it should be a reminder to all of us that it's important that we live this life well.
And cardinals from around the world are now making their way to Rome. They will first discuss funeral plans and set a date, and in a few weeks hold the papal conclave. Now, a few names that have been floated among the church's cardinals as to who could be the next pope. The Vatican's Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin, is among them. Peter Turkson of Ghana, Peter Erdo of Hungary, and Louis Tegel have all received speculation. More than 130 cardinals are eligible to vote. Now, the last time this all took place was in March of 2013, when Benedict XVI resigned. 115 cardinal electors gathered in the Sistine Chapel, making the decision after 2 days. Jorge Bergoglio was elected on the 5th ballot and emerged as the surprising pick on the balcony, taking the name Pope Francis. The length of the whole process can vary. Cardinals' paper ballots are burned after each round of voting is finished. That's where the smoke comes into play. It's the only signal that we get as to what's going on inside the Sistine Chapel. Now, black smoke indicates the process will continue with no majority reached or the individual selected turned down the roll. The ballots are mixed with chemicals to produce white smoke when a new pope has been elected. Lawmakers across the U.S. are sending their condolences as they remember Pope Francis. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin saying in a statement, quote, "We have lost the messenger, but we must hold fast to the message of Pope Francis to love and respect one another. In a world of hate and fear, Pope Francis's message of peace and understanding is needed now more than ever." He goes on to say that the Pope should be honored with a Francis Day of World Peace. Pope Francis has died a day after making an appearance on Easter Sunday. The Catholic Church now enters a mourning period before choosing their next pope. His home will be sealed off and the papal ring will be broken. It's a symbolic move signaling the end of the Pope's authority and prevents it from being used to forge documents. His funeral must take place 4 to 6 days after his death. Local religious leaders remarking on the time of his passing.
I think it's very fitting that he died the day after Easter, after making his final public appearance at St. Peter's Square and briefly addressing the people, and his last words wishing them a happy Easter.
And for the first time in 100 years, the Pope will not be buried beneath the Vatican's St. Peter's Basilica alongside many of his predecessors, which isn't the first time that Pope Francis has broken with tradition during his tenure. Shifting focus from hot-button issues like abortion, gay marriage, and contraception toward a more inclusive church, often called the People's Pope due to his humility, down-to-earth access, and strong advocacy for the poor and vulnerable. Melissa Adon has the legacy that Pope Francis is leaving behind.
The faithful around the world honoring the legacy of Pope Francis, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the first pope from Latin America and the first Jesuit. During his 12 years as pontiff, Francis was regarded as the Pope of the poor, the marginalized, and underprivileged. Instead of washing the feet of fellow priests on Holy Thursday, he chose prisoners, refugees, and the homeless.
I think his biggest achievements were focusing the church on the poor. I really think he'd be remembered as kind of the Pope of Mercy.
He was the first pope who refused to wear certain traditional papal vestments, instead choosing simple white robes and black loafers. He was the first pope to not live in the lavish papal apartment, but a modest apartment, regularly stepping out to shake hands and share a tender embrace. And his opinions set him apart as well, calling for a larger role for women in the church. At the same time, he reaffirmed church opposition to women priests.
Sono scomunicati.
He eased the hard stance the church previously held on the LGBTQ community, allowing for priests to bless same-sex couples.
He's also what I'm going to call a reformer pope, because he made a lot of changes to the way the Vatican is run, the way the church is run. And I think we would also say he is the Pope of the people.
Pope Francis calling for church leaders in the U.S. to support migrants, the poor, and unborn.
Each of you, whatever your capacity, to care one another. Be close to one another. Respect one another. I bless each one of you from my heart.
Pope Francis increased the global diversity of the College of Cardinals, electing more cardinals than ever before from Latin America, Asian Pacific, and African countries. Critical moves that will shape the future of the papacy, as the decision on who to elect the next pope will soon be in their hands. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stacey Skryzak. Pope Francis has died a day after making an appearance on Easter Sunday. The Vatican announced the pontiff died at 7:35 this morning. He was released from the hospital on March 23rd after 5 weeks of intensive care due to double pneumonia complications. Now here in Springfield, Bishop Paprocki shares his thoughts.
I think it's very fitting that he died the day after Easter, after making his final public appearance at St. Peter's Square and briefly addressing the people, and his last words wishing them a happy Easter.
Now around the world, the people are remembering Pope Francis, the leader of 1.3 billion Catholics and a spiritual figure whose humility and tolerance was felt well beyond the church, often called the People's Pope. Francis leaves behind a lasting legacy. ABC's Inez de la Cuartera has more from the Vatican.
Mourners gathering at St. Peter's Square and around the world praying for Pope Francis. His death certificate says the pontiff suffered a cerebral stroke and fell into a coma with irreversible heart failure. The first Latin American pope dying at the holiest time of the year for Catholics. His final appearance Easter Sunday with a message of peace, pleading for the wars to end in Gaza and Ukraine.
Cari fratelli.
On Sunday, he met with Vice President J.D. Vance, who says he was happy to see the pontiff. Francis, regarded as the Pope of the poor, the marginalized and underprivileged, often advocating for migrants and children.
It's just a sad day for the Catholic community.
The Pope is the vicar of Christ. He's a servant of servants.
At the Vatican, he met privately with victims of sex abuse by the clergy. He was considered by many as a reformer. shifting focus from hot-button issues like abortion, gay marriage, and contraception toward a more inclusive church, allowing for priests to bless same-sex couples and calling for a larger role for women in the church, though he also reaffirmed church opposition to women priests. He also spoke openly about climate change. In 2015, Francis visited the United States and became the first pope to address a joint meeting of Congress.
In the land of the free, at the home of the brave.
He is the Pope of the people and also the Pope of great surprises. Just like his death, it was a great surprise.
Pope Francis was 88.
And we're now learning that President Trump plans to attend the Pope's funeral, though it's still unclear when that will be. Inez de la Cuetara, ABC News at the Vatican.
Now, a few names have been floated among the church's cardinals as to who could be the next pope. The Vatican's Secretary of State is among them. More than 130 cardinals are eligible to vote. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch more videos from News Channel 20.